here. Right, so just to bring everyone up to date, some of us went out on a site visit and we looked at where the violation was. We had a discussion with the property owner and they are under the understanding that the fill that was put in is going to need to be removed. Unfortunately, the property that is downstream of that has had work done that we have no permits for. So we were hoping that that property owner would be here also, but he is not able to be here tonight. So what I would like to do in order to deal with this all at once is continue this to the November meeting. So do you guys have any input or discussion on that?
Are we gonna gain anything by the other landowner being here, or just
Yes.
gonna drag it out?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. I'm in favor of that.
Yes, because part of the reason that Phil was put in
Yeah.
is because land was altered downstream, which is causing water to back up there and flood.
Are we
So
gonna, are
we
we,
need to deal with both issues at the same time.
good. Are we gonna have a meeting, this is November, the second Tuesday, is it Veterans Day? Is the place open?
November,
11?
no, it's the 10th. The 13th, yeah.
What am I looking on the calendar underneath?
Just looking at that.
Oh, yes, I'm
Wrong
sorry,
month.
I stand
We're
corrected.
looking at
Okay, good.
December.
I was worried we were in during the voting night, but fortunately voting is the first week.
Okay, so do I have, well, I guess what I'll ask is, do you find that okay?
Yeah, will you just send me the agenda so it
Yep.
reminds
Yeah.
me?
Yep.
Because we really need to have all parties here at the same time in order to deal with it.
Okay.
Because we can't deal with yours and then deal with that one and then come back and forth. I'd rather do it all at once.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and we don't need a
Is there a
motion
motion?
because that's a discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we will move that along. Okay. So, do you want to chair this because I have?
are we gonna have the discussion with Ted? Is he?
No,
No,
he is
he's
not
not
here.
able to come.
Okay,
We have to do this.
Okay,
All right.
right,
Okay.
so the next item is a request for determination. Public meeting that was continued from the previous meeting. Party seeking approval to clean drainage ditches and to pipe 220 feet, a 220-foot section of a present ditch and intermittent stream at number 12 through 56 Knightley Road.
And I am recusing myself because I'm in a butter to this property, so legally I can't interact on this.
So where we left it last time, what, was it written permission? We were asking for written permission and a formal
And I think,
study and plan, right?
yeah,
So
so I think you, last meeting, you provided written permission from all except one abutter, I believe it was. But you were going to try to find a plan that may already exist showing the actual elevations, because that's the other thing that we wanted, so that we knew that it would flow and that we wouldn't have problems with it backing up behind other people's houses and stuff. So I don't know if you've come up with a map,
Well,
found a
we
map?
just got some information like 2 minutes ago,
Okay,
call it,
Mm-hmm.
about a set of plans that my brother has.
uh-huh, okay.
So, but,
But you were also given permission to get some of the debris out of the
Yeah.
center of the ditch so that you were able to do that. And I don't think anything's been done.
no, it's too,
Okay.
we've had too much rain,
Right.
too much rain.
I thought part of that, we'd given permission partly because the water was building up so much that you needed to try to,
But the
It's
problem is
okay.
right now is we can't even go in there.
yeah,
Can't
okay,
get-
It's too,
okay. Okay.
So what's the, do we have more information then?
uncle has some, information that's,
As far as doing the piping on 56 Knightley,
Yeah,
we checked the elevation on that, and there's a 9-inch pitch from the east end, where there's an 18-inch pipe, to the west end, where there's a 2-foot pipe, and there's a 9-inch pitch from one to the other. That's in about 3 degrees.
Mhm.
So that's the ditch part between two pipes?
Right,
225 feet.
that's the one we
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to connect that and,
Okay. So that's the one that you want to make into a pipe?
there's pipes on each end now,
Yeah.
just connect them.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And eliminate the maintenance, eliminate the mosquitoes.
There's pipes on both ends? I'm
On the Fighton
sorry.
end?
Oh, on Frank Fighton's end, yeah.
Yep,
And
and
on
then the other
on
end.
the wagon house end.
Oh, there is a pipe there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware. I'm not. Okay.
Years ago, I think, when the federal people were doing it, Chet Konechny, I think, laid that all out.
Mhm.
And I believe it was his intention to connect it.
Oh, good. Are there any plans, so that we can, they're there?
Well.
That's
basically,
elevation.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the elevation's what he gave us here.
Right.
All right. So right now, that's, and what did the, you had the, was it the NRCS came out a while ago, or
Years ago, when
No,
they
but I
laid all
mean-
that out.
not too long
Oh,
ago?
was
You
Yes.
had to get approval from one of those state
Yep.
agencies, right?
And they approved it.
Okay, okay.
They approved the whole project or just piping it?
They approved the 225 feet
Okay.
being filled in.
And which office was that?
That was NRCS and Hadley.
It was NRCS, not in one of the other Farm Bureau or one of those other things?
No,
Okay.
NRCS.
Okay,
Yeah, I think you gave the name last
okay.
last
I'll look
meeting,
in
should be
that.
in the minutes.
We haven't finished the minutes.
Uh,
Okay,
So right now, if, we're just, the only thing before us right now is the matter of just piping that 220 feet or whatever.
That's all that's set up really right now.
Okay, that's all that, so cleaning the ditch and everything, we don't have to think about that right now.
Well, the,
That's not, because what we're dealing with right now is just piping
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
okay. That I
Last
just
meeting,
wanna
they voted
understand.
on cleaning the ditch, right, in the left, in the middle.
Well, you
the
can
left.
clean out the debris.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
not to get
Yeah.
down to
Oh, yeah.
regrading it or
Yeah.
whatever, but just
Right.
to get
yeah,
it
foliage,
It's
back
gonna
to
be-
normal.
foliage.
It's gonna
and
be a
stuff.
little while before we clean it,
Uh-huh,
because it's just over.
yep. So, at this point, do you want to continue to get to the point where,
You need to because you don't have a quorum.
oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah. I was
Uh-oh.
thinking, oh, okay. Anyway, so I was thinking, like, so we're at least getting pieces of the puzzle completed. And so the question is whether you still want to pursue, trying to get the, what would you call it? It's not really dredging of the ditch, but the scooping out of muck and everything else.
I got some pictures.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. If you'd like to take a look. This was a month ago. And this was Thursday. And this is not very far apart.
Uh-huh.
I'd say less than 200 yards.
Okay, that looks sort of like what we saw when we
Yeah.
were there.
Yeah. These are pictures of the ditch.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that was a month ago.
Right.
This
This
is
was
the amount
Thursday,
of water that's,
last
oh
Thursday.
yeah, this is
Right.
one of the,
So this is the same thing, only a little later.
3 days
Yeah.
ago, 4 days ago.
Okay.
there's a lot more water.
Yeah, oh, I have
Is
no
that
doubt in
the
mind.
piece behind the properties
Yes.
here?
There's the duplicates.
One of those is a month ago.
Yeah, the
Right.
first group.
Right, the
First
first,
group
the
is
first
one
group,
Second group was last Thursday.
right,
I'll put a date on those.
Yeah.
don't get them mixed up.
Maybe you can jot a date at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Otherwise,
this
they
is
won't be-
behind your house, right?
Actually, that's next to your house too.
This is on your side.
This is you. I took one special for you.
Okay, that's up by the back property line, by adjacent to Zagrodnik. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's up by Zagrodnik's end of the field. And then
That's Doc Z's.
This is Doc Z's.
It just shows you the importance of maintenance.
Oh, yeah. We all know that.
Yeah, because I know you and I mean, I've said this before previously, that what happens when we have a big
Keep going,
storm?
that's okay.
When we have a big storm,
Yes.
the debris that's in there and all the growth that's behind your house, and then further down before the big culvert, will back the water up so that there's actually an elevation change from my side, and we've gone through and cleaned the culvert to make sure it wasn't blocked. My side gets high and it actually floods the road, and the other side is much lower. So,
All right.
I mean, I'll reiterate just for everyone that there is an importance of it being clean, and my concern is I don't want it to be going like this with, you know, like a 2-foot hole and then another 2-foot hole further down, because you talked about piping to get rid of the mosquitoes. If there isn't a clear slope there and you have pockets where it's 2, 3, 4 feet deep, that ends up being mosquitoes on everybody else behind the ditch. If there isn't,
That's what I'm trying to eliminate, part of it, plus the maintenance.
Mhm.
Once the pipe is done.
So we're still waiting, I mean, we don't have a quorum anyways, but we're still waiting for, what, a written plan for the piping?
Well, I think we
And-
need the elevations for
and the elevations for the ditch
sections
as well.
for the ditch part.
Right.
That is going to be main ditch, so that we know that it's got the right elevation as well, and that it doesn't have dips, that it, you know, that it have
an even channel
flow,
or
yeah, an
slope.
even channel.
That's,
From where, so I think what we're looking for, you correct me if I'm wrong, if you put your pipe in,
yeah,
and where your pipe stops,
yeah,
then from that point to where the big pipe is by your farm, we wanna make sure the water flows, because that's what you wanna clean out with the ditch. That's what you're, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what you wanna rectify, and you wanna maintain that section of the open ditch.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for is a plan that says, okay, here you take out 2 feet, here you take out 1 feet, here you take out 6 inches, here you take out 2 feet. That's what we're looking for. And to be perfectly honest, we're looking for somebody who has the proper equipment and knowledge to do that type of thing.
well, we're pretty sure there's pitch there because the water's running.
And we know that we must go from culvert to culvert.
Yeah,
Those are not gonna change.
yeah.
Right?
So as long as we're at the bottom of the culvert, you're married to that.
Right, you can't go any lower than the outlet.
And right
So what's
now,
the
there
difference with having a plan that says that? Why don't you wanna do that? Just out of curiosity.
First of all, I don't think you'll be able to do this until it's dry.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
you're
that's
probably
true.
right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, not some water, I mean no water.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
2 years ago, it didn't rain for 80 days. Okay?
Really?
Yes. And until, it's kind of a waiting game. But, in the meantime, other things can be done by looking at those pictures.
Mhm. So you're saying like what we had talked about before is at least trying to make sure that it can flow at this point, that we clear out the debris,
Because there's no way you're getting elevations right now.
yeah,
Or even 2 months from today, because there's just too much water.
yeah. Okay. And Paulette, was the plan that you think that maybe John has or someone has, that might have elevations in
Yep.
that ditch section?
Yep,
Okay.
I believe it has the elevations of the culverts.
See, that would be perfect, if you can find a plan that already has it, then you could just say, okay, we're gonna follow this. You don't have to start from scratch.
Mhm. That's all, because that's all we're looking for, because you wanna do your project. Next guy down the line will say, well, you let them do it, now you gotta let me do it. If we got something to prove that we made you do what everybody does, nobody can complain. They can
Especially-
complain, but it won't mean anything. All we're looking for is to cover our butts. That's all we're looking for. We don't want to flood anybody out, we're not after to get anybody. All we're doing is looking to protect our butts. That's it.
Well, and that when it's done, it's
And
gonna,
and
it's gonna
and
achieve
make
the
sure
Yeah.
it's
the
done
goals
right.
of this, because, I mean, you get someone in there with a backhoe eyeballing it, you're gonna end up with, it's not gonna flow, you're gonna end up with puddling water, so. I think that's, you know,
And then
again,
some-
just coming back to a plan, if something exists, it just hasn't been identified, or found yet, right?
Well, I believe it was used here when the big culvert was put in behind the barns
Mhm.
to keep the manure and that flowing into Lake Warner.
So, I mean, if nothing can be done in the immediate term anyways, even cleaning it up, then it gives you time to at least try to find the plan, and if you can't find one, get one done, because
So
you're not gonna get
unless,
approved without one.
I'd say you were looking at something between, hopefully, maybe January, maybe.
so is this something that you're hoping to be able to get the new pipe section done sooner, that you wanna try to split this project, or is that really not likely this time of year?
Good question.
I would hope so.
Pipe, there's more than enough pitch on the pipe.
No, but I mean, just in terms of, we can't do it tonight without quorum, but whether if we somehow, I don't know exactly how, split the project and said, okay, we can give you permission to get that pipe in between the other two pipes, if that's important to get in, you know, before the winter. But the other is gonna take longer until it dries out and we can get the elevations unless you can find the plan. So maybe you could think about that, or is it gonna take, actually, we can't make a decision tonight anyway. But by next month to know, well, is it too late anyway? Have we found a plan, what the story is, so that we can figure out how to act on this? To wait for a piece or to just approve what is approvable at this point?
Well, you can't approve anything tonight.
No.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
We're gonna continue for a month.
yeah, sorry.
Okay, continue to the same 11:13.
Yeah.
All right. Have a motion to continue?
I'll make it. I'll make
You
the
made the
motion.
motion, she seconded it.
I'll
I'm
make
sorry,
the
I thought you
motion.
said you motioned.
No.
All
All
in
right.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, well, wait a minute, do we have a quorum to
Yes,
vote on?
rule of
continue?
necessity.
New rule of necessity in this case.
Okay.
Just question,
Yep.
is it my understanding that, never mind the discussion about the piping, but from the piping going downstream, that you want elevations at each culvert?
What we want is, you got the water coming out of a pipe, it's gonna go into another pipe 2,000 feet away. We want
It's going
elevations
to an
from
open ditch.
In between.
you know, what we're looking for is to make sure it's done right. That's all we're looking for, period, in the
Okay,
subject.
I've done this before, and I understand there are some comments made that it was amateur hour because I was gonna do it with my backhoe. Alexander Dawson came down and inspected, just cleaning out the center of the ditch, not touching the bank so you would have erosion. But if you start downstream and you take 6-8 inches, the water is going to continue to flow. You don't need elevations, you can see the water flowing. If you go too deep, you're gonna see it's ponding. So it's not a rocket scientist that you need to take elevations for each step of the way with a beeper. All we're doing is cleaning out the center of the ditch so the water does flow. Right now, weeds, hay,
Yeah, I agree.
fills up the
I
ditch,
agree with
and
you,
in some
but
places, it does cause a little ponding. It's a simple clearing of the stream, 6 to 8 inches, not a complete digging of the ditch.
Right,
To get the water to
I
flow.
agree, but my contention is, a person that has a farm tractor with a backhoe attachment is not the proper piece of equipment to use to maintain
Well,
the
I
ditch.
totally
That's-
disagree,
that-
because
well,
Alexander Dawson.
we are,
Alexander Dawson came down and inspected it, she said, this is the way I wanted to have it done. Don't do it like,
yeah,
Okay,
but that's just
so
my
I did
opinion.
have the
Yes.
Don do the inspection, and she said,
Right.
that's all,
That's-
it's
we did it.
necessary.
He did that.
Right,
That's all I'm
But-
saying. All I'm saying is let's do it right, period, in this subject.
and,
It'll be done right.
yeah,
That's all we're
so
asking.
the one issue
That's all.
that's been
Make sure you're not
happening
just
is
agreeing with
that there are
elevations
some
being
sections of the
Right.
ditch
The culverts
along
are not
there
gonna change.
where the culvert is here, but the ditch is much lower, so it's causing a lot of ponding and the water to back up. And then the
I
debris
know, right
that's
behind your
further
house there.
behind my
that's it.
house, up by,
That
no,
was not
up
dug.
by,
That was
But-
an era from the past, so.
right, and what we're saying is, if it's gonna be done correctly, it should be done so that you don't have right in front of a culvert, a big,
Well, the culvert is too high on your end, so what do? Fill it in?
yeah. If the ditch, through cleaning and that along the ditch, there have been sections that were either overdug and other sections maybe were underdug, then in order to, the idea between knowing what the elevations are is you set up a pitch from the outlet of this pipe to the inlet of that pipe, and that's the stream bottom, or the ditch
So
bottom.
you're asking a professional excavator to come in and do all the measurements and do the dig ditching.
What,
Now, part of it is, I own maybe 1,000 yards of that ditch.
right,
And so, the ditch is flowing fine off my fields. So you're asking me to pay for the total
okay,
excavation?
but what's happening is my property is flooding, another property, 2 other properties up gradient are flooding.
They've been flooding for 50 years.
The water has gone higher on I've been in my property for 25 years.
Yeah.
Even this last couple storms we've had, it has never gone up into my shed. The last couple storms, it backed up so that it came up through the bottom of my shed. It hasn't done that. The last time it did that was Hurricane Gloria. And that's been a long time, and that's the issue. That,
So what if I say, it's not bothering me, I don't want it cleaned? Where do you go from there?
Didn't you contact an attorney and let them,
Pardon?
didn't you contact an attorney and
No,
let
no,
them
no,
duke it
I mean,
out?
it's,
What do you want, what do you expect from from
No,
us?
if it's,
He says he doesn't need to do
you're
this.
asking for a professional excavator
Who's gonna pay?
to
Who
clean
wants
it
the
out
ditch clean?
and
How long you got?
asking me to pay for it?
You ready
It's
to
not
make-
bothering me at all.
put some money into it.
Talk to
I
them.
would buy
No, no,
it.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no issues there.
I have
What do you want from
no issue
us?
with that, but
What do you want from us?
No,
If
I'm
we-
asking, you're
I want
saying you
it
need
so
a
that it
professional excavator,
flows,
not somebody with a
so
backhoe like
that you
me.
have
Correct.
I think
That's it.
Well,
those pictures tell it
Hold
all.
on, hold on.
About spending a lot of money.
So you're asking me to pay $25,000 or something for something that is not bothering me at all?
If it costs that much. You know it doesn't
Janice,
cost that
Let's
much.
see 50.
Well, I think we're just asking for
Okay.
a plan, and, I mean, if we can't dictate what the landowners decide to do. I mean, we're just trying to, we need to approve a plan that's gonna, have the best chance of succeeding, and that, as Edwin says, that we're approving something that, approving a plan. So how it gets paid for is not the Conservation Commission's
If people
problem,
decide,
honestly.
if people decide it's not worth the money to
Right,
do
then you
something,
just
then
put
they
up
don't
with
do
it.
anything,
Well,
right?
what if Paulette says she has a problem, and then how do you resolve her problem without
Okay, so
my permission?
worst case scenario, if my property is flooding and I can show it's from downstream lack of maintenance, then that's where you get attorneys involved. I don't want to do that. I don't feel it's necessary. I feel that we can get this taken care of and not make it that big of a deal. There is a plan, and I told them about it, that John has a plan that shows elevations, the inlet and the outlets of those pipes.
They found the plan?
His brother John has the plan. He texted me and said that he found it, Patty had it from when she came before the commission years ago. So the plan, there is a plan in existence. So it's a matter of finding out with the plans, what the inlet and the outlet elevations of the pipes are. And it may be as simple as drawing a string or putting some stakes in between so that you know what the elevations are as it goes. It's
What if
not,
it's as complicated as
Well,
lowering the culvert by your house?
well, no culvert is being changed.
We
We're
don't know
working
that
with
yet.
what's
We don't
there.
know yet.
We don't know that yet.
If we're not able to get that plan, will you accept culvert to culvert elevations?
No,
There's
because
two.
that's the problem, right, that a couple of the neighbors have, is that it's gotten too deep behind them, that the water doesn't flow. That's what we're trying to, I think we all, having been out there and seen it and seen other places in town, know that, yes, those ditches need maintenance. We don't have any problem with that. Part of the difficulty is that only half the ditch is agriculturally exempt in many cases.
Yep.
So you're gonna have to, the commission's gonna have to bend a little bit in order to allow both sides of the culvert to, of the ditch to get cleaned. But we're gonna require that it be done properly, so that everybody, all the abutters, can be satisfied with it and be willing to participate. And then everybody gets what they want. They get the flow of the water, and they get the maintenance and stuff like that. So it just takes some steps, sort of guaranteeing that it will be done the right way, so the neighbors won't be,
How close do you want the elevations?
I don't know.
What
You
do
mean
they-
how
what
far
do they
apart
normally
we
do?
down the ditch?
Yeah,
You gotta look at what
Yeah.
the,
What do they normally do?
What-
I have no idea.
I mean, first step is I have no idea what's on that
Yeah,
plan.
get that plan,
If we get that
bring it in
plan,
next time.
take a look at what the elevations of the culverts are. So if this one is, at 100 and this one's at 96, we know that there's a 4-foot drop between the outlet and the inlet. So that you spread that out and you say, okay, from here to here, this is the slope that it's gotta be. If there are pockets where it's 2 feet deeper in some areas, then that may need to require
Yeah, I
the
understand.
fill to be moved around.
And we're willing to accept that as well, that it's
Right.
not just a case of digging. Some places you may actually have to fill if you've got some
In order
holes.
to create a
Yeah.
channel,
And then, hopefully, you can just maintain it and
right.
live happily ever after.
yeah.
Okay.
So let's
We
continue.
can't-
Steps,
yeah,
yeah, it's
it got
continued.
continued 'cause we
We had
don't
our
have a quorum.
discussion after we
Thank you.
continued it, so,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay,
No, it was always on. Yep.
all right, so. Okay, so we have, do we want to do 5 or the?
Let's do Pride.
Okay, so we have a request for certificate of compliance, file number 170-246, for commercial development by Pride Corp. at 15 to 29 Russell Street. Please come forward, state your names.
Good evening, how are you? I'm Jim Channing, corporate counsel for Pride. With me is John Furman, project engineer at VHB. I
Hi.
believe you have this as-bill. I did put it on the board. I'm not sure if you want to hold it up or perhaps just present it.
I brought,
The,
let's see, one of each. So actually, yeah. So maybe we can see both, but that's the original approved plan, and that's the other. And from what you can see from the distance and whatever, is I've been coloring in the yellow for the lowest elevation, and now it's very close. And I think you all got a copy of this page in a much smaller
Right.
version in your thing, just in terms of, the problem was that you're a little bit short
Sure.
on the lowest elevations comp
That's right.
storage, but then you more than make up for it at the higher elevations.
We do. So There was a summary memo that we put together with that plan. It's dated September 28th. And in that memo, there's 3 charts. So one chart is the summary of the existing floodplain calculations from the original NOI, which are the existing conditions. The second chart is the compensatory storage calculations, which is that plan there, which is what we presented as part of the NOI. And the third chart is the compensatory storage calculations, which are basically from the as-built. So as you've probably seen, we've gone out 2 or 3 times to re-excavate. And the process that was done is that we concentrated on the, I guess that would be the western flood storage first. They got it done, it was stabilized. The surveyor went out, did as-built on it, and then we determined that right by the access road, that was way off. So they went back, re-excavated it last year, they sodded it, and we got that comp storage back to where it has to be. So then they concentrated on building the store, and then we got the as-built for that area and back, and we found out again that we were short more than what's reported here. So we sketched up a plan, Pride went back out with their excavator, re-excavated that back pond, got the storage back up, and then loamed it and reseeded it. So we are reporting an excess in flood storage from where we projected we would be off of that plan. But on 2 elevations, we are short about 1,000 cubic feet on one of them. So overall, flood storage-wise, we projected we would have 131,000 cubic feet of storage. And under this project here, we have 139, almost 140,000 cubic feet. So we have basically 9,000 cubic feet of extra storage from this. But on 2 particular elevations, we're about 1,000 short. So one of the questions that Janice had asked is how this relates to the development parcel that is to the south. So I went back and I was almost positive we had talked about this during the original NOI, and I went back and found it. So in the NOI that was part of the original filing, which is on page 4 of our narrative, we explained what our intent was here. So we were only building the convenience and gas station part at this time, and our intention was to provide additional storage over what was existing so that we could provide some kind of leeway or cushion for whoever that developer was that would come in here on that parcel so that they could do their own floodplain storage. The intent was always that that parcel, whoever it is and whatever development is going to be before this commission and before the planning board getting their own approvals for that. So while we are short on 2 levels, the intention of the project overall is to get back down to as close to that existing conditions as possible. So what I expect when a developer comes in here is the top of that berm is at elevation 124, I believe.
Yep.
So I would suspect that their work for their floodplain is going to be somewhere between 124 and 125. It's going to be limited to that 1 foot. All the highlighted yellow that you see there is pretty much done. And I think the intention is that we have to cut a lot out of this for that. We can't have 2 principal uses on one parcel. So when that comes along, we will cut out a parcel, and a portion of that floodplain will not belong to them so that they don't have access to it, so they won't be using it. So that's the way that this project has been planned.
So whoever builds here,
will have to provide their own compensatory storage.
Right.
They can't use
Well,
the existing ones.
so the way to look at it is that they have a stormwater management system, and there's compensatory storage. So the compensatory storage, so if the commission agrees to the compensatory storage we have right now, for the whole parcel, everything that we have right now, all right, that kind of sets the clock to 0 for the Pride project. So now developer A comes in. He has to look at what he has within his property line for compensatory storage. Then he needs to compare that to the original compensatory storage. He'll find that he has a surplus, and he can whittle down that surplus in order to get his development in here. But he can't go below what was already there. That's the benchmark, that's the performance standard for flood storage. Now, for stormwater, 100% has to provide his own. We have not provided any means for stormwater collection on that parcel. He's got to do his own. And so if he decides to do an open detention basin, for instance, so he's got to do that somewhere on the parcel where it is hydraulically disconnected from the flood storage. That cannot be part of that. So he's going to have a detention basin that is standalone. He can't rely on any of that for flood storage.
So when you talked about having excess flood storage, are you looking at this property would be able to utilize
Yes.
where you have excess?
Yes. So if you
Okay,
look at
so-
the charts, we're pretty tight at all the lower elevations. But when you get to the upper elevations, and I'm just as a comparison, I'm looking at the existing, top, existing, and then the last page, which is the as-built. So if you look at the existing at elevation 124, there's 66,500 cubic feet of storage on existing. If you look at it proposed, we have 78,000. If you look at 125, we have 106,000. If you look at as-built, we have 139. Everything else below that is fairly tight because we don't want them messing around in that lower area. So that's why I said I anticipate that those upper 2 feet are where they're going to be doing their work if they need to.
And how does that, the excess that you have here, how does that impact the storage at the lower elevations? Like what is, if you had to come up with a certain volume of cubic feet of storage, taking elevations out, if you took out what you're short in the lower elevations, what does that leave that at the upper elevations? Because that's where I'm concerned, is that
Sure.
when they come in, they're gonna say, oh, well, we've got all this excess storage, but yet you were short some storage somewhere else.
Right,
Right.
because somewhere, I think, here you say, well, we're 2,000 short here, but we have excess here, but then you also just told us if we approve it now, we start the clock at zero, so you could kind of
Right. So-
give off that other 13,000.
So
right?
the deficit is not between existing and as-built. So we exceed all the areas on, compared to what was built to what was there before we built. 100% across the board. There's more flood storage there than where there is today. Where we have the deficit is what we said we were going to give you. So the 1,000 feet is at elevation, it's in my cover letter. It's at between elevation 120 and 121 and 123 and 124. So that upper elevation is, really these are of no consequence because we have extra over existing. That developer can come in and he's going to use this existing flood calculation as his benchmark. He can, by regulation, he can go down to these numbers.
So where did, I might not have been here for this, where did this number that you were shooting for come from? Was it between a dialogue with us
No.
or it's just sort of what you
No.
hoped to?
Yeah, so what we did is that we realized that we were developing this under a master plan, and we had a number of concepts for that parcel. We had a strip center, we had a single building, we had all types of things. And when we came time to look for the development, no one had surfaced at that time. Our hope was that we would come in together. And Pride wanted to build this store and not have sit on it. So what our intention was at that point was that we will overcompensate for flood storage so that we left a cushion for whoever came in on that one. So as the commission, when that person comes in, they will present this page saying that at the start of this project, these were the flood storage calculations. Pride came in and provided this. So there's there's excess between what was there and what I'm starting with. And they will do their own calculations to get as close to these existing ones as possible. And that is explained in our notice of intent on page 4. That's what I was referring to. If you could, I'll read you that one paragraph, if that would help out.
Yep.
So it says, it's on page 4 of the original NOI. It's entitled Work in Wetland Resource Areas. The proposed project lies within a partially developed area within bordering land subject to flooding associated with the Connecticut River. as described above, which is the general work description of the project. Work proposed within the BLSF includes the construction of a convenience store, retail space, associated parking, and landscaping. Due to the current lack of a proposed tenant, a portion of the site will not be built out at this time. However, site grading will occur in this area. The project will temporarily provide an increase of 39,971 cubic feet of bordering land subject to flooding. The intent of the project is to eventually increase the build-out of the project site once a tenant is identified. The project will ultimately reconfigure the bordering land subject to flooding areas so that the total amount of flood storage provided will be as close as possible to the existing conditions. The project overall will not decrease the flood storage capacity on the site, and the overall project will meet the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw for this resource area. Then it goes on to say in Table 1 what we were intending to provide, and that Table 1 matches what is on this existing conditions here. So the way we presented it was that we're going to overperform now to create a cushion, and then that developer will come in and then basically fine-tune it and dial it back to as close as possible. You will most likely end up still with an increase over what is existing there.
For flood storage, but not for stormwater.
Stormwater is a completely different issue. He's got to deal with his own.
Right.
Yep.
And how do you see the stormwater being dealt with potentially on that other side?
We had a number.
Use the flood storage.
Yeah, we had a number of options that we used on ours. We had some open storage, we had some grass swales, but most of our our stormwater was handled through infiltration systems. We basically dug out, we have excellent soil here. When we started filling in the foundations, it's all sand. It's unbelievable. The infiltration rate we got was excellent. So I fully expect that they will be doing something very similar to what we did, burying infiltration pipes in the soil around the perimeter. Stormwater will go there, and then, depending on where they are, our system is standalone. We're not relying on an overflow or anything to take care of any of our stormwater, and we would expect that that site will do the same thing.
Okay, so we are looking for a certificate of compliance. And Janice, did you have time to look through all the other conditions to see if anything?
Yes, yeah, and the only other thing that I was still wondering about was the vegetation. So I did go out there, and overall, it's looking very good, but there are some patches
bare
still
spots.
for one reason or another.
Yep.
So I told them in an email before that likely we'd just do a partial, like we did with Kestrel and the Lake Warner thing, until it's come fully in. Whether we have a long growing season still or whether it's gonna stop, we don't know, but that the other things could be approved, but just to wait on that final vegetative growth on that. I did have a question too, and I know that there were some changes that were made in the drainage, and I just can't remember exactly what happened, but out here, I outlined in orange the different, the drains off of the roof or whatever, down to storm scepters and then into the underground systems. So I was just wondering, why did all of these get eliminated on this side? Was it a matter of grading things
They may be
differently?
there, but the surveyor, because they're buried, they originate in the building and then they go somewhere underground. He did not have the
okay.
plans that the construction people put together. So anything that he could not trace is probably not shown on
okay.
that. I'm sure they're there.
Yeah.
The construction, the site contractor was, very adamant about
Yeah.
trying to stick as close as they could to the approved plans.
Okay, all right. And I just also, and again, it may be because of what he can and can't see or what he's been charged to do, but how many storm scepters ended up being on the site, do you remember?
I think they stuck with whatever we had there. I don't know the exact number.
Which was 1, 2, 3, I think it was. And I know at one point there was a discussion about some reconfiguration,
There-
whether that would eliminate one, and maybe
Yeah,
that was an
that
early
is on this
version of
plan
this.
here. So that elimination, if you look at that
Yeah,
planter
it's
right
like
there,
in there.
there was never a cut through
Yeah.
there. So we came back to the commission, we put that cut through in and we reconfigured the drainage, so eliminated one. So that is the approved plan that,
Okay, because the storm scepters, well, there's a slightly different shape, there's like a circle instead of a square
Yeah,
in the middle of the circles, and I
Different-
assume that means storm scepter
different
versus
firms,
catch basin.
yeah,
Right.
different
Yeah.
firms, yeah.
Okay, it doesn't get labeled, but
No.
otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was it, and, I think so, yeah, so that was the only thing that I still, had was just the rest of the, vegetated grass growth or whatever on the,
You'll get there.
upland.
It just-
Yeah,
We did have a dry period at first of the year when we
Yeah.
seeded it, and then now we got so much rain, it's,
yeah,
it's rotten to seed,
Yeah.
so it'll kick up with itself.
okay,
Okay, and what I would like to see in the, when we give the final
Yeah.
certificate, is just spelling out what the excess is from
Okay.
existing to as-built, so that we don't have to go looking for it
yeah,
in the future.
It-
Because,
that paragraph on page 4, and I can leave that for you if it helps you, we were very specific when we wrote that, because we said, you know, if a developer comes in here 2 or 3 years down the road, no one's gonna remember what we did. So
Right.
we were very specific when we wrote this.
right, and
So-
that's why I wanna have it on record,
Yep.
because,
there's a big folder with a lot of revised plans
Right.
and materials, so it's hard to necessarily go back and say, yeah, this is still
Yep.
true, so we
Right.
need to know
and if there's
that from you.
something recorded at the registry which can be looked up fairly easily,
Yep.
With those
good
numbers in there,
Yeah,
then
a good
it's easy to
plan.
find, not only by us, but by someone who has interest in that property.
Mhm.
And then it's on record as to what was existing, what are the as-built conditions, so where the excess is within those elevations.
Great
So
idea.
that when someone comes in, they can negotiate with Pride on that comp storage.
So do you want that in the partial certificate? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here's
The
this
difference
one.
between existing and
Yeah,
as-built.
okay.
Okay, so we're looking for a partial certificate of compliance that the following portions of the work regulated by the above referenced order of conditions have been satisfactorily completed. The project area or work subject to this partial certification have been completed and released from this order are. And so we would say comp storage, site construction, what has not been would be the vegetation.
And stormwater's also done.
Right.
Yeah. Not vegetative cover.
Yeah.
Okay, and also specifically say this does not include the other
Right,
building site.
yes.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Okay, good.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
you.
you.
So, Janice, so that have a deal with it, or is that just
No,
done? We're,
once it
once it's
gets
signed, we're good to
recorded.
go.
Yes, do you need a
Has to get
copy
recorded.
soon, or what are you doing with
I'll
your
leave that to the
schedule?
attorney.
We can, I can wait till next Tuesday if it's convenient with you,
Mhm.
but if it's certainly if it gets conveyed to other departments, it probably wouldn't be a
Yeah.
bad thing.
Yeah, right, so are you meeting again soon with like building and fire?
I do, I think
Next
there'll,
step?
there'll be some communications, and I'm not sure if anyone from planning's here, but hopefully by next Tuesday, there may be a discussion with planning.
Okay. And, so, shall I, if I send it certified mail, it could be long, it could be short.
Yeah.
I mean, I could also, depending on what, how
I
soon
could,
you need
we
something.
can have it personally picked up next Tuesday.
Yeah, I could put it in
We can
our
schedule it,
mail
yeah.
slot, I'll let you know, I'll try to do it tonight. And then we'll get it, make my copies, send one to DEP, make a couple copies to people for town, boards and stuff. And then put it in our mail slot in the main thing downstairs with your name on an envelope and stuff. And then you guys can pick it up and I'll email you before I leave to let you know.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I'm glad we're getting there.
Me too, me too.
So next on our agenda is vote to ratify the enforcement order for 170-259 303 Russell Street, update on the status. So, just so,
Which property is that?
this is the.
Harbor Freight.
Harbor
Oh.
Freight,
Pizza.
Pizza, used to be
I
Pizza.
still call it pizza.
Yeah, with the rain, all the rain that we've been having, if you remember, there wasn't much of a detention area,
Right.
very slight. What was happening is because the site hasn't been completed in the construction yet, they had to, run off from that, entered the brook on the side of the property, the west side of the property, and that went down and put quite a bit of siltation
Yeah.
in along the brook as it traverses next to the rail trail.
Mm-hmm.
It was
So,
pretty much after every rain.
every rain, so it was not being successful.
No.
So, I had driven by it, Janice had been out a couple times, and she had contacted me, and I authorized her to issue an enforcement order. I signed this,
Yeah.
did I? Yeah. So I signed it, and we need it to be ratified by the board. And they have been very responsive to this, having pumper trucks out there to actually remove water from the site,
You're still doing it?
and they're still doing it. They have also created a stone berm so that they have an area where they can contain the water until everything gets constructed, stabilized, and,
That's what this sort of semicircle here is.
Mhm.
And if you go by the site, you'll see that they've dug, actually, there are two basins with a berm in between as well as around it. And it was more or less in place before the rain last Thursday, and it was less than half full, which was good, but they still have been pumping it out just so that they've got the storage capacity that they need if we get 2 days of rain or any of those other heavier rains, like the hurricane coming or anything like that. So that's been good, and they have installed a new line of erosion control. It's silt fence and then double mulch-filled wattles. They're sort of like, not a canvas, burlap, yes. They're burlap instead of those straw wattles, which were way too flimsy and didn't hold anything back. So they did start that work last Monday, installing all that stuff, and they've been working on the foundation, and I believe they're gonna start the pouring now, because they've got their deadline now, but they've been good about that, and today they were out digging out the back section there, the southwest corner, and that's where the wetland replication is going to be. And they already have erosion control along the edge, sort of along the edge of the stream. Some of that was put in, I think it was a week or so ago, and the DPW got in touch with me and various other people, including Barry at the site, saying that the culvert on Mill Valley Road, south of this property, downstream from this property, blew out twice. And they said that they felt it was the debris, the woody debris that was coming off of this site and going down there. So
The one you can see, the one right here, the one you can
well, no, it's
On
down
all
there,
the
the
way
Mill
up the
Valley,
road.
yes.
That's the rail trail on the
Yeah.
other side, the Mill Valley sound.
And you can see if you go by there, they've had to put all stonework
Yeah.
in and completely redo that area. So it doesn't quite make sense to me, because the culvert here wasn't blocked when I checked it.
right.
But
Well-
maybe it already cleaned, I don't know, but at any rate, so they put in some additional barriers so that the debris won't wash down if we get some more heavy rains.
Well, also with the amount of water coming off this site, picking up
Yeah.
stuff, going down.
Yeah.
It may not have come from
Yeah.
the site itself, but going down
Yeah.
there, there was enough flow so
Yeah.
that it carried it.
So the landscapers have been starting to prep the site. They were going to be out planting this week, but they're worried about the rain on Thursday. So they're going to wait until after that, but they are trying to make sure to get all the plantings in this season so that they can be well established and growing in the spring. Otherwise, they're going like gangbusters on the Harbor Freight foundation at this point.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so I need a motion and a second to ratify the enforcement order.
So moved.
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
okay, Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did we skip over to public schools?
No, this is still a regular agenda item.
Yep.
Uh,
Oh, no, I did.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did.
you're right.
That will be next, sorry.
Very good, Edwin.
Right, that was my fault. All right, so we have a notice of intent, public hearing number 170-260, continuation for Hadley Public Schools, proposing to construct new athletic fields at Hopkins Academy, 131 Russell Street. This was continued because there was some question as to ownership of the property on either side, or along
Along one side,
one side of the
on the
property.
eastern side, yeah.
So, is anyone here for the schools?
No, I did talk, I emailed with them today. They don't have any news right now. They've been in contact with the surveyor and asked him to research it and to find out more about whose property is this one particular square. And actually, I did have, he gave me a draft of what he thought might be, but it doesn't really show much other than that this is the area in contention at this point. So they're still waiting on the surveyor. They don't know exactly how long it'll be. It'll take a little while. So they've just asked to be continued to next month.
Okay, so do I have a motion to continue?
So move.
In a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So we're gonna continue it till
Yes.
11/3,
Next meeting,
Yeah.
November 13th.
13.
And we'll see if they've got more information, sort of on that same, oh, I can do that later, senior center.
Okay, so now we are on other business. Site visit for the Owl property, Kestrel
Yes.
Trust.
So Chris Valenti contacted me today and asked if he could possibly come up with 2 dates. The problem is basically just trying to get the contractor, who's just having a really crazy busy season, so he hasn't even been getting back to her, never mind saying when he can do it. So she would just like to try for 2 dates, whatever dates they may be. She did
Can you
have a few
just
dates.
explain for
Oh,
a
okay.
minute where the Owl property
Oh,
is?
okay. So, the Owl property is on, is that Roosevelt or South Maple?
That's South
South
Maple,
Maple.
it's kinda opposite the horse farm.
Right,
Yeah.
South Maple until you hit Mill,
Mill
Is it Mill
Site
Site
Road.
Road?
Mill Site
Yeah.
and then it turns to
Yeah.
Roosevelt.
So it's a Kestrel Trust property that they did mow, I think, in the last year or so, but otherwise had been sort of just being allowed to grow. And they originally were gonna try to put a pond or so in there for a
Way
particular
back, yeah.
type of toad. And that didn't end up working out, so now they'd like to be able to do some invasives removal and then replanting or reseeding to make it more of a pollinator habitat. So they want to be able to amend their, I don't know, if it's a notice or their order of conditions, one way or the other, and we wanted to take a look at it first, just to see what's out there. So I don't know if you guys want to try to
Yeah, let's,
schedule a time
gotta be in the
for the
afternoon.
next meeting, yeah, and the days are shorter now.
Yep.
Days are shorter. Whatever, just
Okay.
let me know.
I'm not
So-
back until like 5, so
Yeah,
if you guys wanna schedule it before then, I can always go out
yeah,
on the
yeah.
weekend.
And we should do it before the next meeting, I guess. Now, she did email me a couple dates that she couldn't make it, and I forgot to print out the email, so I don't have that.
So maybe we just do it over email.
We can, yes, everybody here is on email, more or less.
More or less.
But, so that's sometimes a problem otherwise, so, okay, I can try doing that. I'll have her dates and I will email you all
Thank you.
about a date. And just generally, something like 4:30 still give us enough
Sure.
time to do a
Yeah.
walk around. Okay, all right, I'll do that. Okay.
can I ask what the crowd is here for, and maybe we can,
Probably the next item.
Eversource restoration?
No, one after that.
Okay.
Okay,
The rules in Connecticut docs.
okay,
Okay.
so we have not, listed or issued any violation orders at this point in time. When you install a dock on the Connecticut River, you need a permit from the Conservation Commission. If you put a structure up, any type of structure within the floodplain, you need a permit from the Conservation Commission. If you install stairs going down to the river, on the bank, you need a permit from the Conservation Commission. Every year, the commission will rely on the Holyoke Gas and Electric Company. They usually do a survey of the river, and they will tell us what our new installations were, because you need a permit from them also. So if you have installed anything along the river, and you, on our side of the river, and you have not gotten a permit from the commission, the building department, or Holyoke Gas and Electric, you need to come in and have a permit, get a permit from us. You cannot, and natural heritage, because that's an area of endangered species.
You said or, did you mean and?
And, yes. So, if you have installed any type of a structure, dock, stairs, buildings, along the river, and you have not received a permit from the commission, you need to come in and file with the commission.
When did this start?
This has been in effect since the 1980s.
So we bought our property in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
The stairs, the docks, everything is there, has been there since 1980, 81. We have a 99-year permit from the Army Corps of Engineers for the docks.
Okay,
Okay.
so not knowing where your property is, you may be fine.
Okay,
Um,
that's why we're here. We just want
right.
to, we just want to hear what you have to say.
Holyoke Gas and Electric, if you are not familiar, because they have the dam down below, they actually control the pond all the way up into Hadley, Northampton. I believe it goes up into Hatfield also. So every year, they go and they survey the river, and they will look at what was existing last year, what was new this year. They send a copy of the report to the commission, and then if we don't have permits for any of that, we are under obligation because of the requirements of the dam licensing in order to comply with everything, to issue enforcement orders and ask people to come in and get the permits that are required.
Is that public knowledge,
What?
what the gas and electric gives you? For,
It's in the dam
Reports.
licensing permit under the FERC permit.
can I ask you also why Mr. Pelletier would be out on his boat taking pictures of numerous properties? Does he work for the gas and electric?
No, he actually is a member of the Conservation Commission, and the commission, because he actually has a boat and access to the river, the commission will, from time to time, use his services and go up and down the river.
Should he maybe recuse himself because he's on the river?
He would
Just like you?
he would recuse himself with any hearing or any action, like if it's a violation or something like that, because that might be construed as a conflict.
If Holyoke Gas and Electric does this every year, why does it seem like the first year this is really coming to fruition? I mean,
This isn't the
Yeah.
first year that it's come to
did this come
fruition.
up last year?
We did not get a report from the
Yeah.
Holyoke Gas and Electric last year.
You did get a report from him this year, though?
We are waiting for their report this
Oh,
year.
Okay.
So that's
So do
part
you know
of.
what triggered this, what triggered Mr. Pelletier coming out, taking pictures?
Okay,
That's what
first-
everybody's concerned about.
Okay, so first, let's just put it out there, it was not Mr. Pelletier who put this out there as a concern. The commission has been dealing with violations both all the way down the river. Matter of fact, the very first item on our agenda was violations off of Lawrence Plain Road, which is at the lower part where the river is. Violations that happen down there. So the commission will go up the river and we look at aerials, we look at all of our information to find out where violations have occurred. We are also looking at possibility of land being acquired along the river. So when that happens, the commission has to go out and look at the properties in and around there. So if we're out there looking at something and we see a violation somewhere else, which is what happened when we were dealing with the first item on our agenda, we saw another violation. We can't just say, oh, well, we're not here for that. We have to be fair. And for all the people who have gone through all of the permitting, as I think Edwin had said earlier, they're gonna come in and say, you made us do it, how come they have it? A lot of times our violations end up being somebody coming in saying, I had to get a permit, how come I didn't see them get a permit? Because when you get a permit, you have to post a sign that gives your file number, your DEP number. So that's what has to be done. So a lot of times our violations come from that.
I have property on Aquavita Road, and I had a notice of intent. And I also got a letter from a compliance from Andrea Dobson.
Okay,
That Gary signed back in '93.
Okay.
I do have a lifetime permit to have my campers there. There are concrete stairs there that were put in when Andrea Dawson inspected the property.
If you
But I don't have a permit for them.
If you have a certificate of compliance, certificate of compliance is issued when a permit has been applied for and received. The certificate of compliance is saying, you propose to do X, Y, and Z, you have completed X, Y, and Z, so therefore the commission is signing off on X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
If you take and change what you've done there, or you pull those stairs out,
Right.
you need to come back to the commission.
Get a new permit.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
What if your docks are deeded with the sale of the property?
If they
And
didn't have a
stairs.
permit, it doesn't matter. If there was no permit for the docks, there's no deeded right to give to you.
So what you gotta do, get an application?
Yep.
Yeah, so can you say that again very clearly? So if
right.
somebody all of a sudden realizes in this room that, oops,
Right.
we didn't know we were supposed to get a permit
Yeah.
but now we know, what should they do?
If someone had something illegal when you bought the property, transferring the property to you and saying, hey, it's here, it's now, you get it too, does not make it legal. And the commission goes back to when was the last permit taken out on the property and what has occurred there.
And so what do they do to fix it?
You have to get a copy, depending what you want to do. There are some people who are able to do a request for determination, because that will be, you have an access down there, it's a dirt path that's always been there or been there for a long time, you put a dock in, you take a dock out. You don't have permanent structures installed, that possibly could be done with a request for determination. If you have cleared and you've installed stairs or buildings or structures, that's a notice of intent. And that's.
How about RVs? Now, is that gonna be a problem?
Huh?
RVs?
RVs, I believe, are they're
Board
permitted by the Board of Health.
Board of Health?
They have to be removed by a certain
Right.
date.
November
So
1st.
if they're removed by the certain date, that's not an issue. If with the RVs, you're bringing down all kinds of accessory buildings, which are there permanently and are not
Right,
removed,
temporary.
then,
Fine.
then, right. And our only concern to people or caution to people is that if there is high water coming, and Holyoke Gas and Electric has the dam system which will notify releases upstream, and you are on their notification list, if you have the ability to pull those things out so they don't end up downstream at the dam, then that's what we ask people to do.
So, how do I say this? Again, we've been there since 1980. Nothing has really changed except for making the place nicer. If we have never gotten a notice of that we are in violation, then we really don't have much to worry about right now, correct?
No.
Okay.
If you did work, okay, so just so everybody understands, if you have a property along the river, if you want to open up your view, there are requirements under the Wetlands Protection Act that say you are allowed to remove a certain percentage of the trees. You can't go out and clear cut, you can't bring fill in, you can't put buildings in, because just like we were talking about with the Pride Station, that's floodplain. And then riverbank, so from the high water mark of the river, 200 feet back, so if the river comes up and floods on your property, wherever that high water mark is, 200 feet back is under jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So some people's entire property might be under jurisdiction. So the first 100 feet, if you have something that's been there, you have some grandfathering. If you are new there and you didn't get a permit, you don't have grandfathering in there.
Right, so that's what I was saying, I'm not talking about clearing land or brush or any of that, I'm saying that the material things that are on the property that's been there since, the stairs going down to the river, and things like that, are we grandfathered with that? Because I can tell you, in 1980, my father did not get a permit, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't know.
Right,
but-
chances are, if you had stairs and or a dock,
Yeah,
that went through the state
okay,
with the,
Army Corps. of
Army
Engineers.
Corps,
Yeah,
right.
so we're
That's what
permitted
they
for
have.
that,
So if you are permitted with that, you are grandfathered with us.
okay.
Those are all fine.
Okay, if you decide to take things out and change them,
Mm-hmm,
then you need to come back to us.
okay,
But there was also a certain period, at some point, I don't remember what year it was, the DEP said, okay, no more grandfathering, you have, what was it, a year or two to get into compliance, to ask for permission to be included in the grandfathering, and after that, everybody has to do it. And that was back probably in the
Early 90s.
90s, something like
On
that.
the riverfront,
And it
rules
was-
came in.
Yeah, no, specifically, especially for docks, and so a lot of people did it, and a lot of people never heard about it
Never
and
heard
didn't
about
do
it.
it.
again, the docks and the stairs are our issue, I mean, they're all grandfathered in, I would.
But if they've been there
They've
for
been there since
that long,
1980.
yeah.
So if that's true for everyone in the room, if they have something since before 1980, they have to have something
would-
from Army Corps of Engineers, or
If
they're
we
just
go out there and
grandfathered?
we see that things are new, because something that was from 1980 is gonna look a lot different than
Yeah.
something
Right,
that was
Yeah, but
installed
what if
within
you,
the
I mean,
last.
if you have a wood stair, system and you rehab it,
You still
your
need to
stairs
come
are
in
from
for,
your stairs are from 1980, so you change,
still
you
need to
change
come in for a
stair
permit.
treads, okay.
you still need to come in for a permit.
So who do we see about the permit, what,
This-
we come to see you,
The Conservation Commission, Janice is our staff person.
and your
Um,
business hours are when?
I'm in on Tuesdays, my standard time is 11 to 1, but I can I can have other times as well if
Okay.
people contact me.
And.
What's the cost of the permit?
Depends what you're
Depends.
doing. It's
So I
It's
had,
a sliding scale on
okay,
what, depending on what you're doing. Are you clearing, are
No.
you putting permanent structures in? All of those things are,
okay,
each thing gets its own price.
And
Can you give like a range?
No,
And
because it depends on the scope of the work.
your contact information
on the website.
Yeah, so the Hadley Conservation Commission,
Yeah.
if you look on the website, or even if you call Town Hall, they can give you the phone number. We have an answering machine. Janice is very good about checking it and returning calls.
But I'm only in on Tuesdays, so I mean,
Right.
sometimes I pop in otherwise, but generally I'm just on Tuesdays.
But if you leave her a message, and she can put your name and your permit in a permit for you in a file, or in an envelope,
Yeah,
it can, we have a Conservation Commission box downstairs. If you look and you see an envelope with your name on it,
Yeah.
you know, you can't get in on Tuesday, you could get in later in the week.
okay.
So you're gonna have notices of intent to certain people
Yeah.
coming up,
Right.
okay.
And the other thing I should tell you, because, well, Ted has been ranting and raving about it for a while now, because we've been working on, actually, before Alexandra died, a year before she died, we're working on what she called river rules, which is, you know, her simple
Right.
way of saying things. And what it basically was trying to tell people what these rules are, that if you're working within 200 feet of the riverfront, then you have to come to us, that there's certain minor exempt activities and other things are not. And because I've been part-time and we've had so much other stuff to do, I've gone through about 5 revisions of that. I've got all the envelopes labeled, and I haven't gotten to doing the cover letter and getting it out. So at some
So if
point.
somebody's been there for 20, 25 years, they could get a notice of intent if they don't have a permit.
Yeah,
Yeah, because what we're looking at is alteration of, like, say, the trees. If you're cutting down trees, or you're tying new docks to trees, or any
Right.
new structures are
Right.
gonna have to go through permitting. But there are docks up and down the river.
Right.
It's just a
Right.
matter of.
When's the last time you did a survey of the river? What,
a couple years
I
ago.
mean, obviously,
Yeah.
a lot has changed since 1980.
Yeah.
If you only had a property for like 5 years and you walk into it, it looks the way it is, only thing you've done is you've been paint and stuff, make things look a
Oh,
little
I
better.
don't look inside.
But
Right.
let's say I don't have permits.
Yeah.
What do I gotta do now to be compliant?
Well, when you purchase your property, your realtor and/or your lawyer should have done due diligence, the fact
Yeah.
that you're on the river.
Well, they're all.
There should have been, when they did the title search, because any permit we issue is required to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So there should be a chain in the title, and that's why we require it to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So that when someone new comes in, they can research their deed, or someone who does title insurance, they're able to look and
Okay.
to see.
But it's not gonna tell me if there was 10 trees there
No.
6 years ago, or
No.
there's no
Well,
trees there now.
we have.
Get aerial photos,
Yeah,
things like that.
Farm Service, and then has done aerials since I think the 70s. They have done flyovers of all the farmland in there, and that includes the river. And then Google Maps or Google
Kinda
Earth.
hard to tell with that, though, because.
Well, no, you can,
Poor imagery, but.
right,
well, I
but you
mean, like,
can
this
see
past-
whether an area has been clear cut.
But like this past ice
Mhm.
crap last year, you know,
Yeah,
wiped
cleared a
out,
lot
I
of
wiped out
trees out.
tens
Wiped
and
out
tons
a
of
lot.
trees along the bank.
Right.
I believe it.
Which, no one went and came in and got a permit,
Yeah.
said, hey, I'm
No.
gonna fix this because this is now a hazard for
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
downstream.
Now, something like that, if it is in imminent danger, you come and you request an emergency certification from the commission. That gives you, permission to stabilize things without coming through the whole hearing process.
What about dead trees that are about to fall over?
You still
Are
need
we, are we
permits.
allowed to cut them though,
You
so they
still
don't
need
take the bait?
permits.
Still need permits.
You
okay.
still need
Yeah, what
permits.
we're after is just to protect you and to protect us.
Right.
If somebody hears a chainsaw and sees you cutting a tree, we don't wanna get the phone call.
We
That's all.
get lots
We
of
just
phone
wanna
calls
make
when
sure.
someone takes out a chainsaw.
I bet.
And we've had actually, people notify us of violations about docks and stuff from the other side of the river.
Of course.
So, I mean, it's not just the people going up this side, but also seeing you from the other side. So I don't get out there very often myself, but I use the Google and stuff, and once in a while I ask for a ride so I can get out there, or I go and I ask HG&E, did you see anything over in this area?
Mhm.
Right. So to get compliant,
If you're in compliance, then you
No.
have your,
let's say you're not compliant,
Right.
if someone's not compliant, what do they gotta do?
you need to file for a permit. I mean, we're in the process of waiting for the HG&E report, and then we have our documentation, and we will match those. And you can either be proactive and file for a permit if you know you don't have one, or you can wait until you get an enforcement order from the commission.
So to be really explicit, if they wanna be proactive,
Come in,
what
we-
permit do they get from where?
Depends what they want to, like I said, it depends what you want to do. And that's where you either talk to Janice,
We'd rather have people in compliance.
right,
We'd rather know and have all the paperwork settled. And it's to your benefit too, if you ever try to sell the property. There are a couple properties on River Drive that were for sale this year, and I had a lot of realtors calling and prospective buyers calling and asking, I see there's a place for a dock, is there a dock permitted? I talked to DEP and they say no, 'cause all those, like Paulette was saying, all the dock permits are in the Registry of Deeds, and if there isn't one there, then you're not legal.
So you need a dock permit.
Yeah, and what
Yeah.
we mean
That's
the
it.
dock
Most-
permit.
Most everybody's
Right.
using this little piece of land to throw a camper on for 5 months.
Yeah.
Sleep there on the
Right.
weekends, use their boat, go
If,
back home
if
on a
you are
Monday.
using your camper, you need to make sure you have the Board of Health permit,
Yes.
because if people are going, you know, either using their trailer and then disposing of waste in the river or over the bank, then, which has been done, we
Yeah.
have seen it. Mitch's Island, right?
Yeah.
Mitch's Island this year got shut down
Yeah.
and cleared out because people were basically living there and defecating on the property.
Should have been shut
And-
down.
It's
Right.
because we all complained.
So, but,
Good, thank you.
but this
But-
is, these
Yeah.
are the things, when we get complaints, when we hear of things, that's what brings us out. As I said, first item on our agenda was a violation. We went out there, the person who made the complaint has the property next door. Part of the reason this person did what they did is because they moved dirt and blocked water from flowing.
But
So
you
now
get
we
these
have,
permits every year?
huh?
You have to get a permit, I mean,
No.
this stuff all, we have to take all this stuff out right
Right,
now.
your permit, once you get your permit, okay,
From the conservation.
from the Conservation Commission, and you get your certificate of compliance, until you go to change it again, you're legal. Your permit that if you're going to do something like Pride came in, they're in the floodplain, so for the station. So they had to get a permit from us. Their permit, when we issued it, was good for 3 years. So they had 3 years to comply. They've come in, requested a certificate of compliance. They're not quite there yet, so we said we've signed off on this much of the project, and once everything grows in, we'll sign off on the rest. Then, until they come in and do something else, they're set. And that's why, like I said, it gets recorded. If you come in, you get permits for your dock or stairs or whatever, and you build it, and you come in and you get a certificate of compliance, and that gets recorded at the Registry of Deed, until some time that you decide to go and change it, as long as you keep with what's been approved, you're good.
So if you have a tool shed on your property and you bought the property and it was on there, you have to get a
If it's permanent.
If it's a permanent structure. I mean,
permanent meaning,
our concern, our concern, and whether it's permanent or not permanent, I mean, that requires a building permit.
yeah.
My understanding is there are some structures that don't require a building permit if it's like, doesn't have a foundation, but that's with Mr. Nyhart.
I think it's no foundation under, no, I think it's 160 square foot, if like you're talking sheds and stuff.
Yeah, so,
But as long as it's movable, it's not permanent.
right, but the issue is if you're in a resource area. So the Wetlands Protection Act defines a resource area as wetland and floodplain and riverfront area. So if you look at the high water mark, wherever that is, the water's down here normally, and when it floods, it comes up to here. From this point, 200 feet in is under jurisdiction of the commission. So that's what requires a permit. May not require a building permit, and it may just be a request for determination if it's a small structure able to be moved. Our concern with any type of like a garage or shed or anything like that is if we have high water coming up and you've got equipment or machines that are filled with, and you have gas cans or things like that in there, that if the water comes up, that's gonna end up going downstream. And we don't want that. When people are building in the floodplain, they have to elevate, if it's a house, they have to elevate all their like heating, utilities, anything like that has to be above the floodplain. When we've done garages, something like that, you have to allow the water to come in and out. And any type of storage of materials like that, we've required it to be above the floodplain elevation. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we are here first Tuesday of every month. If you have any other questions, please feel free to come in, or second Tuesday, sorry.
And they can also
Second
email you,
Tuesday.
Jen.
And they can email, right.
Yes.
Conservation@hadleyma.org.
Right, so you can email, stop in, leave a message on the phone, the answering machine. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like you're gonna get rid of most of your customers.
What a difference.
Okay, Eversource Restoration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Usually I do 2 pages, I didn't bother tonight. So anyway, I talked to the consultant that was handling it, and he sent me a report, and it's in here somewhere. But generally, it looks very good. If anyone, I don't know if anyone stopped over at Lot 12 and took a look, but it's gonna be hard to
I
tell
drove
the parts
by.
apart. Yeah. It looks pretty wild again, so I told him to ask UMass if they wanted to get a certificate of compliance now. They had started that process and then
Right.
stopped it with some of that, so I haven't heard back yet. And I told him, well, if you're in the area, or you wanna come in and talk to us, fine, and if not, then, you know, we'll just do an update.
Okay. All right, so next is letter of support for land conservation project with Kestrel Trust.
Yes,
This
I-
is
we
the
told you.
last meeting they came in and talked to us about a number of properties.
Yeah.
Is this the same with the
Yes, we had
range too?
2 select board meetings about it, and the last one went quite long. Started before I got there, I didn't realize, and the hall was completely crowded. And I got the last seat inside because it was right up front in the middle, no one wanted to sit there. But I think it worked out okay. There were a lot of issues. It has to do with 3 large water department parcels that are off Chmura Bay Road that go up to the top of the range. And also, there are a number, I think there's 5 or 6 or something like that, parcels that are along the Connecticut River shoreline between Mitch's Marina and, let's say below Cedar Reach Farm or something, you know, that sort of area there. And there were a few that are already owned by the town and others that they can put to tax title. They were all pretty small with very low undevelopable, you know, fees because they're undevelopable on it. So we thought that was gonna be no big deal, but it turns out that those are areas where people either
Big deal.
snowmobile or hunt or something like that and are concerned about the future and access. And then they had complaints about Kestrel and the DCR and how they don't let us hunt on your properties and stuff, and they said, no, that's not true. And they gave the example of Moody Bridge, which is US Fish and Wildlife Service, and no one ever understands federal versus state. So several times they told DCR, but you don't let us do that here, you know. No, that's not us, that's the feds, but I think it took some doing. The new Kestrel guy is from New Hampshire, and I think that worked to his benefit too, because he's been working with a lot of people who have concerns about snowmobiles and things, and he told them the last one, he said, look, I've been doing this for a number of years in New Hampshire, and we've done a lot of conservation restrictions. It's included snowmobiles, hunting and fishing. It is not a problem. And so they said, okay, can you give us some samples? I don't know if you gave samples or not, but after a long discussion with a lot of people who are still concerned, they explained that actually putting a conservation restriction on these properties can keep it open to hunters, snowmobilers, hikers, or whatever, in ways that if it goes to private property, it wouldn't. And I think that was a good argument that helped a lot of people, and in the end, the vote was just to agree to write the support letter saying that they'd be interested in being involved in those 300 or 200 whatever acres on the range are an important part for Kestrel to be able to meet the 500 acres of core habitat. So we'll see what happens. They still have to get some from, I don't know if it's Amherst or Granby or wherever it is. And I have not heard back from Paul asking for another letter. Now, I think the letter is due sometime in October. So maybe
they
what I
wanted something, they wanted to
So-
clean, I think the deadline was the 31st or something.
Okay, and he's,
So
He
I would
needs
think
it
that
from us or the select board?
well,
or both?
so he's getting one from the select board.
it helps with the.
It helps to have one from the
Yeah,
Concom as
alright.
well. And he had sent a sample one, but at that point, when he said it, he had included those different properties, and I told him, this is over our head, we can't write this, you have to talk to the select board, so that's why they.
Just tell them to
coming
send
back
an
up.
up-to-date letter and
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
okay.
mean, you shouldn't
And then
have
I
to do
can
any
get hold
work.
of Paulette and she can
Just
sign
have
it.
to drop it into a
Okay.
letterhead and.
Yeah, providing that the, you know, hunting and fishing.
Right.
and-
Yes,
Right,
Still
I mean, I
allowed.
think something that's consistent with where he got to with the select
yes,
board,
yes, yeah,
right? I mean, that's,
Yep.
and then,
okay.
so does that need, do you need,
No, but as long as Paulette's okay with, I'll get
Yep,
something to
if you
her
guys are
and
okay
yeah,
with,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Janice
Just so-
Just as
Yeah.
long
And it is
as,
just- it's
just
like-
as long as you just protect the right to the.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's basically just a letter of
Not
intent
that I
saying
like
we're
to-
interested in being involved
right,
at this
Right,
point.
making it
See
I
what
mean, he
happens.
should have led with easement that includes conservation, it seems like easement doesn't.
It sounds better than restriction.
Well, it could be a
Right.
hunting easement, it could be a
Uh-huh.
snowmobile easement,
Yeah,
unfortunately, the language of the state
yes,
is
it's
restriction.
well, yeah,
And everybody hears restriction, and it's
Yeah.
like,
right.
Feels restricted.
right.
yes.
Restriction.
All right,
Okay, so senior center, my
Senior
understanding
center.
is that has gone back for a redo,
back to
that
the
they're making it a little smaller,
Right.
so that there
Right.
isn't an issue with the parking, because planning board
yes,
was making a big deal with the parking with the library.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
So senior center is going back to the drawing board to reduce their size, which then would allow the parking to be in compliance, and they have nothing to deny the project on.
so we're on hold with them.
Okay.
What do we have to do for that? The storm, just the site stuff, right? There's no,
The, yeah,
Or
it's
is there some
stormwater,
wetlands?
for
It's
the
stormwater,
senior
right?
center,
Yeah.
it's stormwater,
I was
for
gonna say, there's nothing.
the library, it's also, I think the library's
Within the
one's
100
closer
foot,
to the
right.
ditch, yeah, next to the nursery. There's
Yeah.
a ditch that runs down.
Oh,
Behind
right,
the
behind the
lines.
parking lot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
by the parking lot, yeah, so,
Okay.
anyway, so that one's on hold.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
here's my
River rules.
Obviously, it is time.
So did they all get notifications from someone, or what?
Oh, it travels.
Yeah,
People,
word
it
travels.
Oh, is that
word
what it
travels.
was?
Yeah.
That
This
it
is
was on
Hadley
the agenda?
Goldfish.
No, but that
No.
was on the agenda, or that,
No, people
What was
saw
it?
me taking pictures from the boat.
or Gary?
Well, Gary
got
was
it.
driving the boat, because I can't get out there, I don't
Oh,
have a
so it was
boat.
that, it was you
Right.
guys
Yeah.
parading around?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yep, yep,
Right.
and
then
the
they
alert
ended
went
up-
out.
The alert went out, and
No, no,
it
no,
was
but I mean, like from
on the agenda,
Yeah,
violations
yeah,
of
Yeah,
docks along the river.
I
Yeah,
think,
that
I
got
think,
some to show.
I think you handled that actually well, and it turned out to be, hopefully an informative time, so.
Nobody was happy
You know what,
because
you know what you should
could
do,
tell
Janice?
that, oh.
Forget
I get another
forget
fucking
the sending
permit.
them out, tell, put the word out that your thing that you typed up is available, have them come pick it up.
Uh-huh.
Don't don't spend the time like cover
Well, no,
letters,
if,
right?
won't
if they have
pick
a
it up.
violation, we have to,
Yeah.
because DEP.
No, but I'm just
will
talking about your
The
river
river
rules.
Oh, yeah.
Tony, I mean, Tony Lynn's
Don't
point
mail
is,
them out.
just
Well,
give
we-
them something in
I've
writing
got
that's
all
in
the-
plain
Yeah,
language.
because that's my, so I think we did handle that well. My only concern is that I think you guys know this stuff so well that you like
Yes.
blow
You
through
mean
it,
like, okay,
and
when
if
you-
I had
when
just
you
come
do a
in, I
request,
wouldn't know what you're
they don't know
talking
what
And-
notice
and
of
that's
And
intent
you
is.
have 2 hours a week. You don't
Right.
have time to
Well,
answer
I
every
think
single
that's
person.
my office hours, but then
No,
I
but-
am
Yeah, but
working
still.
more than
So,
that, but I can
like,
make
we need
arrangements.
something that says, if you have a dock, and I realize that it's a little variable,
Yeah.
but it's not totally variable.
Well, if you're putting in a new dock, it probably requires a notice of intent.
There's probably
Right.
Put one
like
in
8
without
things
Exactly.
that like
Right.
generally will get them to the right
Yeah,
space.
just like a decision tree, or
Right,
just say,
exactly.
which one of these things,
And
which one of these
totally,
things.
typically,
and then-
if
Assuming
they,
they know nothing, like I would know nothing.
right,
Yeah.
and that's where, when people come in, they usually, their first stop is, just like, I wanna build a building, I need to talk to Tim because he's zoning and building.
Right, but you
So-
know that already in Tim and everything, and so
Yeah.
we're
Right.
saying like contact
But
Janice.
what I'm
but-
saying, yeah, they should come in and talk to Janice, cause Janice can kinda steer them. I don't wanna tell someone you need a notice of intent
Yeah,
when it's a request for determination.
No, that's true.
yeah,
And because there's a
Or
very
the other way
big
around.
difference in prices
yeah.
of what it entails, depending
Yeah.
on what the scope of the project is.
But
So you
these people
can't
are
just leave, general guidelines, it's better to have a conversation before they get all the paperwork done and let
No,
them
but I
know
mean,
what
these folks are just
Right.
knowing, do I have to do anything?
Right.
Forget
Right.
what it
And
is or how
then,
much it
and then
costs, so
if
it's
I
like.
do, what does that even mean? Like,
Right,
okay,
then
I
they
wanna
can
do
go-
something.
Right, I mean,
Yep.
so
What do
I
I-
think just.
You know, like
Yep.
they don't know what
But
an
from an
NOI
efficiency
is or
standpoint,
anything.
just what you were saying,
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is in violation, you're just giving people general education information.
Yeah.
Right,
Make it available, and when someone comes in, the first person comes in, or half these
Yeah.
people, you tell 3 of them that it's available, they're gonna come pick it up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
some, and some.
Well, and
need
some
to
Well,
know.
so what?
Still.
You know,
Some,
what can
some
you do?
will know that they're in violation and say, I'll wait till I get caught.
Yeah, well, that's fine, but I'm just, the general
Yeah.
information
Right.
can get out there without you having to do a mailing. That's,
Yeah.
it already did,
Right.
right? So
But-
let's
They did it
just
right
take
now.
But we
advantage
have-
of that.
Right,
But
I agree.
the river rules,
Yeah.
what we've been working on for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think
Make 'em
we sort of
available at town
decided, and I
hall.
just
You don't
wanted
have
to
to send them out
cover
to
that.
anybody.
But they-
Just make 'em
They've been
available.
in draft form, we've
Right.
never finalized, so, because Janice has not had the time
Right.
commitment
No,
because we're
we
over
get it, we
budget.
get it.
But are they
understand
good
it.
enough,
You're
are
not
they
gonna-
80%?
Yeah, I think
Forget the cover
I
letter,
think
but
the,
if they're-
the river rules are basically okay.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do a cover letter rather than just send this thing out and
Yeah.
just say, you
Don't
know,
send
I was
it
gonna
out.
be like, well, it's springtime and you're getting your trailers ready or whatever, you know, well, it's too late for that, you know, but to
I
let
don't
them
know,
know
just-
that
yeah,
it needs.
but
that
then you
this
get
needs-
I'd
this
make it
and, you know,
available,
it's
I'd
like,
make them
don't
available
like
at
that.
town
So-
hall and that's it. When you run out, you run off more copies and make another
So,
pile and
with
make them
river
available.
rules,
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
Why
we
send
should
them
just
out?
take one final look at them,
yes,
Right.
yeah,
and
I
then
will,
basically
Send them
say
out.
that they, yeah,
yeah.
Right.
so.
And
Okay.
then, yeah, if you have, I know it probably feels like more time, but if
Yeah.
you have time to put like a little decision tree together, not to say somebody's gonna follow that and then spend a week
Yeah.
on permitting, but at least
Yeah.
they'll like go, oh, I think she means this form, and then
Well,
they'll
I'll
come to
see,
you.
like
to-
some towns have some things like that, some of their fancy
Right.
towns. So I'll look at some
Yeah,
of their
rip off the
websites
Band-Aid.
Yeah,
and
just
see.
rip
Like,
it
on
off.
that side,
Yeah, just rip it off. I mean, really, it's
what,
not like.
Northampton or
Plagiarize.
something, right? They're
Weston,
But,
you know,
yeah.
places like that.
People's
And-
staff.
and the
Yeah.
Okay,
Staff.
staff funding.
full-time staff.
Speaking of.
Yes, yeah.
Speaking
more
of staff
Yes.
funding, my understanding is there's going to be a warrant item
It is.
for,
Yep, it's in there.
okay, so there is a
But
warrant
where's the
item,
Budget.
Conservation Commission expenses from 3,100 to 15,100.
Whoa.
But now, the thing that I just
It's
thought
another-
of,
It's another page too.
what happens to the fees?
She's gone through all the fees, that's the problem.
Except I haven't.
Right, but
I
now
haven't done
she's
the
gonna
new
lose the
administrative-
fees.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
No,
You
no,
wanna bet?
why?
They can't.
Because they're coming in through here. You
No,
wanna
no,
bet?
no.
You wanna bet?
State law
That's from the
requires,
general
okay?
fund, isn't it?
Yeah.
State law does
No.
not say wetland fees go into the general fund.
Yeah, they don't.
State
They
law
can't.
specifically earmarks
Yeah.
1/2 of the filing fee goes to the Conservation Commission. Period.
That's all
End
I'm
of
saying.
discussion.
You
It
gotta
does
clarify
not-
that,
it
because
does-
it's gonna,
it's state
somebody's
law.
gonna,
It's state law, and,
Where did this other money come from?
It's coming out of, I don't know what it's coming
because
out of.
when Molly came to one of our meetings, and
Yeah.
she happened to be here, we said, Molly, by the way,
Oh, yeah, you were
since
here.
you're here,
Yeah.
yeah.
we want to talk about funding,
Nice.
because we've had so many
Huh?
town projects.
On
The
the select-
select person,
Yeah.
chairperson.
So,
No.
up to
she was
now,
chairperson.
from the standpoint of
Well,
the
we
town
don't know
budget,
where
all
the
they
money's
see is
coming
that $3,000. So
2,000, yeah.
Whatever, but
2,000
the
a
fees
year.
never show up in the
Right.
budget.
Right.
So, if they
Where,
never
where,
show
where,
up,
where,
they
where
don't
is
go
that
through the budget.
15,000 coming from?
Well, I don't know, it's not our problem, that's.
Yeah, but no, but that's the question that's
Yeah.
gonna get asked.
Well, let them
Well-
ask it.
Yeah.
You know, we have,
I don't know where all
We've
this is
had-
coming from.
okay, we've
don't know
had
either.
so many projects
Exactly.
that have been exempt from fees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
Wow.
we
Paulette, I get
have
it, but
run
all this
ourselves
other
into the ground.
stuff,
And,
we don't know where the money's coming
well,
from.
they can
But that's,
they
That's
can explain
not our
that.
Yeah,
And
that's
you can
not our-
stand up and ask that question.
I will.
But,
it's the cost of doing
With our
business
taxes,
in the
right?
town.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, but, you know,
so Edwin, my thought
what
is,
basket is it coming out of? That's all I
Edwin,
want
my
to know.
thought is, if it's our basket that it's being filled, don't ask.
Okay, yeah.
But it's up to you.
Well, if it's, if it wasn't coming, if it wasn't passing through the town's budget before, there's no reason putting
Right.
that line in there is gonna somehow change that
Right.
unless.
Well,
I don't know what's gonna happen, because it's just like, we never came to the grinding halt before, we always had the money from the
Right,
Wetlands
'cause we
Filing
were-
Fee
'cause
Fund.
It
I
was
would,
subs, it
I
was
would,
a sub,
I would check.
Yeah,
it was
obviously,
subsidized.
yeah, and I guess, you know, I
Subsidies.
occasionally someone would say something like, oh, well, you only work, 5 hours a week or something. I said, no, I work a lot more than that, or, because I was
they're
only
looking at
getting,
the budget,
as far as
that's
they
why.
knew, I was only getting paid $2,000 a year. Well, that was a lot of work for $2,000
Right.
a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
all right,
But,
Okay.
so hopefully that's been straightened
Okay.
out.
motion to adjourn?
We don't have no minutes?
No minutes.
No, I didn't,
Okay.
I decided to wait on the minutes because
Okay.
I think I've already used up all the money that there
Yep.
is,
Yeah.
and so I was waiting
Okay.
for more
When does that
funding.
money come through?
Town meeting?
Town meeting on the 18th, and I asked if it
Yes.
retroactive, and he said it should be, and I assume that means to July 1, which I figured, okay, I'm just gonna wait,
Yes.
and just see what happens, yeah.
And
And
hey,
do we have any bills? Since we have no money, there's no
after
bills?
the
No.
budget
Yeah, right.
There's one
Well,
good
there are
thing from
bills,
it.
but we can't take any action.
Yeah, right, that's right.
All right, and then this, I got this one.
That was a long time ago, but I thought
Okay.
you might be interested in talking about mowing lawns and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'll take a look at this and
Yeah.
I'll report back to you guys at the next one.
Okay, and we did get the
Ocean
notice.
River Institute.
Yeah, we did get the notice of intent for the sectors for that property on French Street, or French Road, that they were gonna split.
Yes.
And it's
Yep.
all in riverfront and stuff like that, and
Yep.
DEP has gotten that as well, so they had a question about it, but haven't had a chance to.
But that'll be on our next.
That'll be on the next
Okay.
one, and we'll see what else comes back at us at that point.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing was, and I showed it to some of you guys, two other things actually, just so that you know the fun
Oh.
part.
You didn't see that.
Do you want another one? or
they're
not?
moving us, we're moving upstairs, but we're going to a smaller room.
Yes,
What
back
is
to
this?
our old room.
Our old
You guys
room.
don't
Well,
even
good
know.
thing we had this on video showing we could really use a big room.
Well, it's not for meeting, they're trying to create a meeting space, so they're moving everybody's
The
offices.
town meeting room.
And so
It's gonna be right
our
here.
office on the first floor is gonna turn into the Board of Health, and then we're gonna be in the little room, which is actually where I used to be with
So-
Alexandra, next to the treasurer and the
So,
elevator and the men's room.
Our
Yeah.
office
It's
is
gonna
going
be
to
down
go
there.
to the Board of
Yes,
Health.
It's
yes,
gonna be
right
right
down
there.
there.
To
Yeah.
the
Little tiny
second
That was
room
floor.
the-
for the veterans.
Janice.
This is the
I
old
see.
Well, it was
little
the account.
Conservation Commission office.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know where
Right
she's
there.
going.
Well, so you won't have that safe anymore, huh, Janice?
They're gonna get the safe out of there, they said.
Yeah,
I want that thing.
So,
I think it's cool.
Well, maybe you can take it, they probably
so
will.
why does the planning board have a conference table?
I don't know.
Because it's too
Why did
small
they
to
get
have well, our room
Unless-
isn't big enough.
Yeah.
I
It'll be
remember
hard.
being in
It'll
that
be harder
room,
to
there isn't
find,
enough,
Janice,
you
so.
put
Yeah,
like
really?
the file cabinets
Yeah.
in there, and there's no room in this,
Yeah,
I
I don't know how we're gonna fit the
Well,
front.
this is just a
This is
draft.
way back when I was staff here, before I
Yeah.
became on the commission. We had the table here, a desk here, and the
Typewriter.
files there, and the
All right.
typewriter.
How much you guys reminisce?
Thank you.
All right, so we
I
need a
move we
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn,
Second.
I adjourn.
okay?
Yeah.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good job, everyone. That was a
Thank you
little
for an exciting
intense
evening.
there for a little while, but we got through it.
I thought they were all here for Ted.